Hello, how's it going? It is Monday morning. I just woke up. It's about it's 9:03 here, meaning that if I subtract 10 hours, it's 11 p.m. Sunday night, back in Arlington, Texas. Um, So yesterday, Sunday, we didn't have a crusade. It was our visit churches day. This was probably the most. Yesterday was probably one of the most emotionally draining days of my entire life. I think just a combination of what we did, what we saw, and the fact that I was just in the van that we were driving in. I was sitting just in a seat where there really wasn't too many people to talk to around, or at least not very talkative people around me. So I was just able to sit, look out the window, and watch everything that was going on as we were driving to different churches, and just think. So a lot of it was probably my own just mind getting to me and just thinking about things, but it was definitely something I had never experienced before. I think it definitely will shape my life forever. We woke up yesterday, left at 8:30, traveled about an hour and a half to a church, and the plan for yesterday was we're going to go to 3 churches, and we're going to speak and just be there for their church services. All 3 of these churches were started by one man, Pastor Aslam, who has been kind of with us this whole time. He is he's currently a pastor of, I think, the first church that we visited, but he started 3 others. So he's an awesome guy. I got to talk to him on the way home, but I'll tell you about that later. And then, so anyway, we go to the first church in Patoki, and we pull into this like brick area. And I mean, everything is made of brick. The houses, it's all brick and cow manure, I guess it is. That's how they make buildings and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the first church we went to wasn't as much cow manure, I don't think. But anyway, so we, as we're traveling to this first church, Azim, who is the main interpreter, is sitting next to me, and he's kind of a quiet guy, but he's awesome. I love him. He's got a great laugh and a great sense of humor, and just a real man of God, and you can just tell. But he leans over to me at one point during the ride over to the first church, and he says, "You see all these markings on these walls?" Because as we're driving, there's like walls or solid brick fences or whatever that, as you're driving alongside the road, they're all the time there. And it looks like this graffiti is on the wall, but it's in Urdu, of course, so I can't read any of it. But he says, "Do you know what most of these are saying?" I said, "No, I don't." He said, "It's jihadists warning Americans not to turn around and not to be here, and that they have no problem killing for their religion, and all this stuff, but they were pretty much just warnings and encouragement to others, saying if you see an American, kill them." Just all this terroristic threats written on these walls. So I asked him, I was like, "Well, I mean, since we're traveling so far away, is that why this is happening? He says, yes, the farther away we go, the more jihadists we get. I said, okay, I didn't know that. So I realized that yesterday was the most dangerous day that we had had. Well, I can't really say that, but it was a different style of danger that we're putting our interpreters in and also putting ourselves in. So anyway, that was a big hit and thinking point for me, just thinking about the fact that a lot of times you think about countries and you think that you can go over there and change them, and that there's something better that can be done about this. But in reality, I mean, you have one religion who is not going to kill people because they're true to Christ and followers of Jesus aren't called in the Bible to ever kill people of other religions. They're called to be at peace with everyone. Yet in the Quran, David told me that there's a section in the Quran that says that if you kill an infidel, you will get 40 virgins in heaven. So it's clear that there is religious motive for Muslims to attack infidels, and America is considered the biggest enemy of Islam. So you have one religion who's willing to kill people for their religion, and one religion who says, well, we are not going to kill anyone, but we're also not going to back down from our religion. We're not going to back down from what we follow. So it's a very bad mixture, because Muslims can just keep killing as many followers of Christ as they want, but the more followers of Christ that are made true followers of Christ aren't going to back down. So it's just a cycle that I don't see an end to. We go to the first church and we're welcomed with like a little greeting ceremony. We start walking in and there's children lined up on both sides of the way that we walk, and they're tossing flowers at us and music is playing and stuff. It was the coolest thing ever. So we go into the church. The church is in a room, or it's in a building, but it's just a room that is bigger than a bedroom, but probably not much. Maybe the size of 3 bedrooms, I guess, in a rectangle shape. But that was great. We went in there and I listened to him sing songs, and we each got up and shared why it was that the Lord put it on our heart to be in Pakistan and at that church and everything. And I just shared with them 1 Thessalonians 3:9, that I can rejoice and be encouraged in the faith by them, and how I hope that the feeling is mutual, and I hope that as I encourage them, I want them to know that they encourage me so much, and that this trip has already been life-changing for me. And then after that, David spoke and gave a Palm Sunday service, because it was Palm Sunday yesterday, and that's a big celebration here in Pakistan for the 2% of Christians, but they celebrate that. So after we did that, we left that church. Before we left that church, there's a boy named Yusuf, who David knew from a couple years ago. He was demon possessed, and the story goes that this boy was at that same church we visited. David went in and spoke, and the boy had passed out. So they took him back to his house, and after David gave the service, they asked David if he would go and pray for the boy. David walked into the boy's room at his house, and he was literally crawling back and forth on his bed, like a lion or a cat or something. and he was hissing and screaming, his eyes rolling in the back of his head. And so David grabbed him so that he couldn't move anymore and started praying for him. And eventually the boy just stopped squirming. He just curled up in the corner of his bed, and he just went to sleep. So David just left, didn't hear another thing about him, came back a year later and saw the boy doing perfectly fine in the church, smiling and doing everything. So he found out later that that demon was released that day. And then we came back today, again, that first service, and the boy read scripture for the entire house church. And that was unbelievable to see. 2 years ago, this boy was being possessed by a demon. And now he's reading scripture for his entire church. Pretty incredible. Anyway, after we did that, they gave us a meal and we headed off to the second church. Let's see, the second church was maybe 20 minutes away. The second church, because how it works in Pakistan is they have Christian communities and they have Muslim communities where, like I said, in some communities the Christians will try to all live around each other, and that's what I mean by Christian communities. It's not like a Muslim can't live there or a Christian can't live in a Muslim community. It's just some of them try to band together because that way they can be safer. So the first house church that we went to was in a Christian community, but the next two that I'm going to tell you about were not. They were in Muslim communities. And Azim leaned over to me whenever we were heading into the first one. He said, shut the blinds. And I said, okay. So, like I said, in the van, there's blinds, so I pulled those blinds to where no one could see me, and I said, so is this a more dangerous thing? He said, yes, this is probably the most dangerous thing that we'll do today, because of the fact that you're white people, and most of these people in the church we were at last, and then the next two churches, and just in Pakistan in general, have never seen a white person in person. When he said that, it really put a whole new perspective for all this on me, because I had no idea. I thought maybe they would see one once every week or month or year or something, but I mean, never seen a white person in person. Like, that's nuts, I mean, I don't even, that's crazy. And I guess because of the fact that we were in these small villages, that had more to do with it. But he said just in Pakistan in general, a lot, and the majority have never seen a white person. So pretty crazy. I guess that explains some of the, everyone freaking out, wanting to take pictures and all that kind of stuff, because I guess we're different. So anyway, we went to the second church, which was awesome. We walk into the home, and I look to my left, and there's a massive cow just a foot away from me, just staring at me in the face. Kind of weird. Anyway, and they also do a welcoming celebration. We walk on this tarp, and they've laid down like stuff in front of us, and they are also throwing flowers at us and everything. And we go to sit down on our chairs. By the way, in all of these situations, crusades, churches, they have us sitting to where we are facing all the people in the audience. So, for example, if there was a stage, which there hasn't been at the house churches, but if there was, we would be on the stage facing everyone behind like the pulpit and stuff like that. But no, it was just a floor. So, anyway, so we walk in this like tent. It wasn't closed off. It was actually what I was told, that it was very similar if not the exact same kind of style of holding up that a manger like Jesus was born in would have been. Just sticks on the ground with tarp hanging over them and attached. So that was very cool. So we go there, and that we sit down on the chairs that they have for us, and it was crazy. I've never seen so many flies. I mean, I'm talking a couple thousand flies, probably at least, in that section of seating plus the section just around. I mean, I don't even know, but I mean, there are, at least on this section of this little like couch thing that I'm sitting on my section alone, there were probably 50 flies just on my section alone whenever I sat down, not to mention all the ones flying around the air. So it was, and they stayed, I mean, flying around during the whole service. So it was pretty crazy. Again, all these people are used to it, but we're not. So that was just fun, just having flies all everywhere around you. I mean, it was definitely pretty crazy, but it was cool because I, being a selfish American, I was worried about, is this going to distract me or freak me out or anything, because I'm not used to all these flies. It didn't. The Lord was there, and I was able to focus on the service and all that kind of stuff, and the flies never bothered me. But it was definitely an interesting thing just having so many of them around, and just seeing that this is how they have church every day, and this is how a lot of them live in their homes, with all of these flies just everywhere. Crazy. But anyway, that service was actually an ordaining service, and so is the next church. But so David just got up, preached an ordaining service over the pastor. We got up and we prayed for the pastor. Oh yeah, I skipped this, but at the last church, the church I'm describing now and the next one, all three of the churches we did yesterday, they gave us flowers, like the flower necklace, the leis. They put those over us, and they had like a special ceremony for laying us for all of those churches, just like they did at the first crusade and everything. So anyway, but we ordained that pastor, and they had all of the elders of the church and that pastor come up, and all of us laid hands on them and prayed for them. After that, they gave us another meal, and at this point we're thinking, I don't know if I want to eat all these meals, because we're in a really bad area. We don't know what the food's like. At the last place, the first church we went to, it was just some delicious tea, best tea I've ever had in my life, plus some pastries, so it wasn't bad. But this was real meat and stuff, and totally, you see a chicken running around at the beginning that they're cooking, and Sherman made a joke well, that's what they're going to be serving us, and it really was. So everyone was oh man, we don't really want to eat this, but we couldn't be rude, so we ate it. We didn't have to eat much of it, of course, but we did have to eat some, so we did. It wasn't bad. It was just weird because, again, us spoiled Americans, we think that everything has to be checked by the FFA and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's the FFA. I don't know. Maybe I just made that up. Some health organization, I guess. But anyway, we ate that and left for the next church. We actually had to leave that church early because the fact that we had one of the guys in our group, Joe Brown, was taking pictures of a mosque that had one of our advertising posters had been put up on the top of the mosque, which was very disrespectful. And like I said, we're in a Muslim neighborhood, so some Muslims had seen that Joe was taking a picture of it, and I guess that was a very bad thing. Could have started a revolution or something, so we didn't want that to happen, so we had to leave very quickly. So they rushed us out. Next, we traveled just to a man's house in another Muslim neighborhood, and he just lived near where the next service was going to be held for the third church. So we hung out at his house for about an hour and a half. It was awesome. We just kind of sat around in his house. They had the little bongo drums stuff that they use for every service, and a kid was playing that, and we just sat around and worshiped. Again, just me and Joe and David and Sherman just sat around and worshiped. Trace went off and kind of took some pictures and hung out with kids and stuff. But just a great relaxing time in this, again, all brick, manure floors, manure steps. I mean, it seems like they make everything out of manure over there because it works well. You mix it with mud and it holds things together, so pretty crazy. But they actually had the they had the service set up in one area next to this house, and the reason we stayed around in that house was because it wasn't time. We had to wait until 6 whenever the service was meant to start, but it wasn't time, so we waited around. But since it was a Muslim neighborhood, I guess talk started to get out that there's Americans in our neighborhood and they're here for Christian reasons, so it became dangerous. So they had to move the service from somewhere else. So they took down the tent and everything, and they moved the service. But anyway, when it came time for the service to start, we got up and walked out of his house, and we walked to the service. And what this church did is they had little kids standing on each side with holding these long leaf things. I kind of pictured on Palm Sunday whenever Jesus walked in and they had these leaves that they were waving. These kids were kind of doing that, which was just, again, it was so humbling and just so cool to see that and experience that. So we walked down that aisle into that church, had another service. It was an ordaining service at this third church that we were doing. They actually had 5 guys with guns because of the fact that there had been talk of possible threats there. So anyway, we did that. Let's see, what was next? Sorry, my mind was blanking. Anyway, so we had that service, and again, that one lasted from about 6 to 8-ish. So that one we were there for in the dark pretty much whenever we left. So it was kind of eerie walking through those villages, those Muslim villages at night, knowing that everyone in the whole village knew that we were there. And we had to walk back to our van, which this time was actually kind of far away. But we're having to walk through through this village with all these, Muslim people outside just sitting there staring at you. Anyway, kind of eerie. Everything turned out fine. Went to the van, drove off. We drove off and headed on back. I was talking to the pastor who was sitting next to me on the ride home, and I had Shirazer, one of our interpreters, interpret for me whenever I was talking to him. And I just kind of asked him some questions because he was thanking me so much for everything I've done and all that kind of stuff. And I just told him, that he encourages me so much, and that I thank him for all the kingdom work that he's doing, and how much my faith has grown in just seeing his church planting and all that kind of stuff. And I asked him, I said, are you fearful, knowing that, you planted 3 of these churches, 2 of them are in Muslim communities, you're a Christian pastor, Christianity is the minority, I mean, do you fear on the daily or monthly, or is it often or ever? What does the fear situation look like in your life? Because you're a Pakistani pastor in these practically underground churches, and he said, we could die at any time. So why wouldn't we want to die the Lord's way? Now, I've heard myself, I've said things, and other people have said things about dying for the Lord. But never once have I looked into the eyes of a man and seen fearless faith the way that was on his face. Philippians 1:21, maybe it's 1:20 or 1:21. I think it's 1:21. But to live is Christ and to die is gain. I've never seen that so proven in someone's life, and also so true with joy and seriousness and fearlessness on someone's face. This man knows every day. He knows, he's not stupid. He knows every day that he could be tortured terribly for his faith. I was just talking this week to people and hearing about things that have happened recently. Again, every day Americans are dying over here in Pakistan just for being American. Christians are dying every day because they're just Christian. About a year ago, an entire Christian community was wiped out by Muslims. They came in and destroyed every child, person, house, everything in the entire community, all gone. There was a man who was buried up to his neck, so only his head was sticking out. Christian man, and they released dogs on him, and the dogs came and ripped away his face, and he died. There's another man, and this isn't in Pakistan, but it's just something that David was telling me about that was just absolutely terrible. A man who was tied to a chair to where he couldn't move. His eyes were opened for him, and 3 men raped his wife in front of him. He was a follower of Christ, and that's why he was being persecuted. They raped his wife right in front of him. There are serious things happening to people every day. There are serious persecutions happening to people every day for their faith. People are dying, people are being tortured, families are being destroyed, children are being killed. Yet I look into this man's life yesterday on the way home, and I see his eyes, and I see fearlessness. And he probably knows 10 times the stories that I just told you. He was fearless. He saw to live as Christ and to die as gain. He saw that what better way to die than to die the way the Lord wants him to, instead of living a bubbled life and wasting it. This man was not wasting his life. He was living it for the kingdom. He was living it for the only thing that matters, which is Jesus. He was making disciples. He had so much fruit from all of these churches. And he didn't get there because of the fact that he was scared. He got there because he followed Jesus no matter the cost. I want to be like that man. Because that man was like Jesus. He was fearless. He was humble. He was a leader. He was kind and loving, yet stern and serious. He was a man of God. When we got back last night, my head was hurting like it had never hurt before. We were actually going to go out to eat, but me and Trace, neither one of us were feeling too well, so we just said that we were just going to go to sleep. Went to sleep. Woke up, here I am now. Still trying to go through everything that happened yesterday in my head. We have our first crusade tonight in Patoki. Don't know what that's going to be like, but I will video it, and I'm sure have a blast there. So that was my Sunday. It was unbelievable. Alrighty. Well, I will check back in later. Bye.